thought the Venom movie was a hilarious, stupid, entertaining mess. Not bad, not good, just there. But I still had a decent time. The last time I watched it, various ideas popped into my head about what could have bumped this from hilariously middling to pretty good. Here's 3 ways Venom could have been better. Number 1. Don't do an origin story. Eddie is already Venom and has somehow upset the criminal underworld, and they separate Eddie from the symbiote. Matt Gargan, known as the Scorpion, gets the symbiote. Eddie has to use his human wits to take on the mob and get the symbiote back, not only because he feels horribly alone without it, but Gargan is very dangerous with added symbiote powers. This would be hard to pull off, as I imagine most people would want to see Venom as your protagonist, not a regular reporter going John McClane on a gangster Venom. But with the right director and screenwriter, a wonky premise could make for a great film. This might be tricksy, as Matt Gargan was in Spider-Man Homecoming, and I don't know how willing Disney would be to cross-pollinate a character like that, especially with the dubiousness of whether this movie is in the MCU or not. Number 2, don't do an origin story. This movie is nearly 2 hours long, but it still feels rushed when the symbiote decides he wants to help save humanity from Riot. It's also hard to swallow this character growth when the movie is flirting with the idea that the symbiote is dangerous and wants to eat innocents throughout the movie. Start with Eddie already bonded to the symbiote, and do something like Hannibal or Dexter with a serial killer protagonist. Eddie doesn't want to kill, but if he doesn't, the symbiote will feed off of him, and the next human it bonds to might not have the same moral compass Eddie has. Eddie has to seek out the evil people who deserve to be eaten to satiate the symbiote. If you go in this direction, Carnage should probably be the main villain, since Cletus Cassidy is a serial killer in the comics, so you'd have some interesting parallels there. Out of self-preservation, Venom has to stop Carnage so the authorities don't accidentally stumble upon his similar MO when trying to put a stop to Carnage themselves. This would be a pretty straightforward movie, but the moral conundrum Eddie is struggling with would be fascinating to see play out. To be fair, this might be the premise of the Venom sequel, but with the tone of the first Venom movie, I don't see them pulling it off, even if this is what they try to do. Or don't do an Eddie Brock story. Flash Thompson, Peter Parker's classmate, was a host to the symbiote for a time, and the series had a soldier with a superpowers vibe going on. If you go in this direction, you could have Flash be a struggling alcoholic while battling this creature's urges when he's on missions. I confess I only read Flash's Venom stories where he was a space agent, so I don't know how him doing soldiery stuff happened in the comics, but maybe the US government has a crew that backs him up, so they feed the symbiote some sort of chemical to pacify it, but Flash can always hear it calling for more, a lot like an alcoholic might continue to struggle even after they admit that they have a problem. This might be too heavy-handed a place to tackle such serious subject matter, but it's there if you want it. The bad guy here would be one of the other symbiotes. I don't know much about any of them, but if Flash is the guy who serves his country and tries to suppress the symbiote, then the bad guy would be a foreign operative who also somehow got bonded to a symbiote, and he loves it and has no inhibitions. Sorta a Wolverine Sabretooth thing. People make fun of superhero movies where the bad guy is just an evil version of the hero, but the twisted reflection of the hero can be a fascinating way to examine the hero, so I would be okay with this. Using Flash Thompson might be difficult to do for the same reasons that Matt Gargan might be off limits. And that's it. 3 basic ideas that, on paper, I think could have made a better Venom movie than what we got. Of course, making a movie is difficult. There's a zillion moving pieces. Coming up with a concept is not enough. But a concept is where all movies start, and I like to think a good concept would get you closer to a good movie than a shaky concept. That's it for now. I'll see you guys in the future.